Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is my Spookytoberfest episode 3. I shall apologise because it's been quite a while since my last update on this project because I got sidetracked with various painting projects. But I did make some quite steady progress on those, so I don't regret it one bit. What do you think about that? Well, anyway, here we are back to Spookytoberfest, which may very well turn into Spookyvemberfest by the time it's finished. Wouldn't be surprised at all. Now, at the beginning of this video, you may have spotted that I turned the model upside down and showed you that I had milli-putted underneath the kind of crab shell armour on the shoulders. I did that off camera. And right now, what I'm doing here is tearing off tiny little sausages of green stuff and wrapping them around the very edges of the piping that's going between the body and the weapon mount area, because I wanted it to look a little bit less just stuck on there, the pipes, and it makes it look like they're actually plugged into something. And the more detail the better on something this big, I think. You don't want any pieces that just look stuck on whatsoever. So that's what I'm doing here, and it's a very fiddly task. If I had known I was going to do this before, then I would have actually put these in first, and then drilled into those, probably. That would have been much easier, I think, rather than what I'm doing here, which is trying to weave them round the pipes, which is not the easiest of tasks. But with the shapers that I have there, the clay modelling tools, it's not too difficult. And what I'm doing here is adding a bit more green stuff to the head to try and smooth it down a bit. I actually decided later that the head is way too big, so I cut it in half, so it doesn't have the top part of the head anymore. So I'm going to figure out something else on that. But what I'm doing here, well, you can see it's a new day and a new camera angle and a new outfit. And I'm looking for bits here. I'm looking for something that will help me attach the weapons under those shoulders without them looking lame. I want them to look like they belong there. I'm just looking for the right piece. I've got lots of tank parts in that bits box there from the good old days when I had an Imperial Guard army, and I've selected a few bits to try and use there. But what I'm doing here is I'm scraping down some mould lines of a couple of spikes I'm going to put on the Reaper autocannon, which is going on the right shoulder. 2 spikes, one for the top, one at the bottom. The other weapon, which you can see there, is a missile launcher, which I believe is called a Havoc launcher, with 6 missile launchers strapped together, essentially. Now, with these spikes, I had a bit of trouble getting them in the right kind of rounded shape to sit on top of the guns, so I had a nice rounded file there, and I was just filing them down a bit so they would sit nicely on top. And then I'm just gluing them on with some plastic glue to make sure it's going to be an extra strong bond there, since they're kind of flimsy. I didn't want to just use super glue and risk them snapping off. But where I am using super glue, however, is to glue anything onto the body, because I'm not sure how that plastic is going to hold up to plastic glue. So, super gluing a nice Slaanesh symbol right into the middle of the chest, which I think is quite a nice touch, actually. It's going to add a little bit more decoration to it and stop it looking like just a Barbie torso. It's going to look quite evil and demonic. I really need to shave in this video, don't I? Disgraceful. Yep, there you can see that. You'll get a better look at that at the end of the video. And you can see me holding it down with my thumb because it's kind of on a curve, and I was trying to get it stuck down all the way around. And then I'm putting a smaller symbol on the back, which you'll see later. What I'm doing here, I've selected a piece that I'm going to be using to attach the weapons to the shoulders. I believe it's from the underside of an old Imperial Guard tank, and I'm just cutting it down to size so that the weapon sticks out the right amount so it doesn't catch on those nice crabby armoured shoulder blades. And I cut that down quite considerably, and here it is magnetised and attached to the weapon, and there's the other one magnetised and attached to the weapon. I did all the drilling off camera because it's on the other side of the room, and you can see under there that I've drilled a couple of holes into the milliput as well. And now I'm ripping off some green stuff, and what I'm going to do with that, when it's fully mixed, everyone loves watching me mix up green stuff, don't they? When it's fully mixed, I'm going to stick that into the hole in the milliput and then attach the weapon connections into that. I don't just want to glue them straight on there, I want them to have a real solid bond in there. And then the weapon will be able to come off with the magnet. So that'll be quite handy if I want to change the weapons in the future, for instance. I'm just putting the blob of green stuff in there. I put a bit of glue in first. I don't know if that's really necessary, but that's what I did. And then I'm sticking the piece of tank with the magnet on the end in there, and then testing the weapon on it to make sure it's at the right angle and everything. Making minor adjustments, and then with that delicious tool I'm going in there and just working around the edges of it to make sure it's all nice and smoothed in there. I'm going to do some more work on those so it looks a little better, because I didn't really pick the parts that I used for their aesthetic value. I really just picked them because they were functional, they were at a nice right angle and they were the right size. So I'm going to be working on that quite a bit. You can see me pressing in. I believe I'm on the other side now. Yeah, this is the missile launcher arm. So I'm just working that in there. Make sure it's nice and embedded and at the correct angle so it's not going to come out, and then testing it with the weapon there. And then you can see how it's going to look. I think it's looking quite delicious at this point. You can actually see the whole model coming together. After this point it's going to be pretty much detailing. What I'm doing here, with the spare green stuff I had left over, I'm putting that in between the gaps, really, in the shoulder pads, just so it doesn't look quite so stuck on. I'm going to try and make it look quite organic, like the flesh has grown into that, almost. So it actually looks like it's attached rather than just stuck on there. It looks like part of the same creature. So I'm working that around there nicely. And you'll see in a minute that I use my finger to press this down because my little finger is just about the right size. There you go. To go into that crevice there. But had I left it like that with a fingerprint on it, at the very least the great Jojo man would strongly disapprove. He's not a big fan of fingerprints and green stuff. So then I'm going over it, smoothing it down, making sure there's no evidence that my finger was ever there. And we're coming up to the end of this episode, so I will give you some pictures and see you next time. Ta-ta.